Alright, hello and welcome to episode 30 of Hunter x Hunter. Right, I'm very excited to get into this because I have been told, a little birdie has told me that around kind of episode 30 is when things start to really kick off. So I'm very interested to see where things go from here. I was only able to watch one episode last time because I was still sick and I was still recovering from that and I was getting a sore throat and it was kind of uncomfortable to record and discuss. But now I'm feeling a lot better. I should be able to get in a good few episodes now, I think, because I've mostly recovered now. Man, the last few weeks have been a real mess. I've only been able to record like once or twice in the last few weeks, and only like one or two episodes at a time at that. It feels like it's been so long since I last watched like the show properly, sitting down and watching several episodes at a time. When we last left off, um, Gon had just jumped straight into his first fight. He'd done it a bit quick. I was worried about how quickly he just jumped into a fight, but I hope he can manage it. He's up against this guy with like a red cloak and uses the spinning tops. And I already discussed about how I'm worried about how the fight will go because getting 10 points with the spinning top seems kind of easy, whereas it might be a difficult fight. But I have faith in Gon that he will at least not die. I have faith in him that he will at least not die. Because here's the thing. He only needs to win one fight in order to face Hisoka, right? He only needs to win one fight. That's the deal. Gon doesn't care about beating 10 people and fighting whoever's at the top. I mean, sure, that could happen. He could beat 10 people and fight whoever is a master of a floor. He could totally do that, but that's not what his interest is at the moment. His interest at the moment is simply to punch Hisoka in the face. So it doesn't matter if he loses 3 times in a row. As long as he wins one fight and then gets to fight Hisoka, he'll be happy. So theoretically, Gon could get his ass kicked for the next 3 fights, and then just win once, and that'll earn him the right to fight Hisoka, right? Because it doesn't matter. He doesn't care about necessarily getting all 10 wins and fighting the Master. I mean, again, he could go on to do that. That's totally within the realm of possibility, but that is not the intention with which he came to this place in the first place, right? His intention in coming here was to get stronger so that he could face Hisoka, right? And now it's only been a few weeks since then at most. I can't remember exactly how long it's been, but it hasn't been that long. It hasn't exactly been 6 months like Killua was originally planning it to be. But yeah, let's see if Gon can pull this off. I'm rooting for him. Alright, so that was episode 30 of Hunter x Hunter. And can I just say, it's really refreshing to see a show where the main character gets his fucking ass kicked all the time. That probably sounds weird, but it's like, I'm so kind of tired of shows where the main character is just a badass prodigy who can beat anyone and is the most amazing person in the world and no one can stand up to him. You know what I mean? It's like shows where it's just like the main character, like Dragon Ball, for example, where Goku is just super strong and he's the prodigy and fucking nobody can beat him. It's like, of course, in the original Dragon Ball, Goku does lose a few key times, but you get what I mean, right? That kind of classic shonen thing where it's just the main character is just the strongest and the bad guys, the villains and the bad guys only exist to be beaten, and all that kind of stuff. So it's really nice to see a show in which I'm not sure Gon has won a fight. Let me think. All right, so at the start of the show, no, not in episode 1, episode 2, no. He didn't win. So all the way to the Hunter exam, he didn't win anything, right? He did bonk that one guy on the head, but that wasn't really a fight. It doesn't really count. And then in the first phase of the Hunter exam, he lost to Hisoka. And in the second phase, there were no fights. In the third phase, before the third phase, he wasn't able to grab the ball from what's his face, Netero. In the third phase, he didn't fight. He did the candle thing, so that wasn't a fight. In the fourth phase, he lost against Hisoka again. He didn't fight anyone, and then he actually got beaten by the Hunter guy, and then Hisoka got the thing. He did best Hisoka, but not in the fight. It was more like a stealth mission type situation. And then in phase 5, he lost his only fight against Hanzo quite bad. Well, he didn't lose the fight. He won the fight, but he lost the battle but won the fight, if that makes sense. Oh, actually, the other way around would be better. He lost the fight but won the battle, right? Like, he got his ass handed to him, but due to the way the rules worked, he was able to win, right? But if that was an actual fight to the death, he'd be dead, right? And then... and he has won fight... Okay, he has won plenty of fights in the Heavens Arena, right? He won lots of fights against the less experienced people, pushing them, right? So he has won fights. He has won plenty of fights, actually. But in terms of, like, fights that actually mattered and had, like, a proper spotlight put onto them with named characters we actually give a shit about, I don't think he's won any. I think all of his victories have been against nameless, faceless, random people who didn't even get given a name or an identity and were just there to lose. All the, like, named important characters who actually have an identity, I'm pretty sure Gon has lost to every single one of them he's fought so far, which I really like. I really appreciate a show in which the main character isn't some invincible badass who just goes around beating everyone, and he actually loses a lot. And I really like that. I really like that a lot. Because it shows that he is still new. I'm not saying I'm going to dislike it if he becomes a badass. If in 30 episodes' time he's a total badass who's, like, top-tier hunter, then whatever, right? I'm okay if over the course of the series he does legitimately become a tough badass. I'm not saying I want him to be like this forever. It would actually be quite annoying if he never won ever, right? But, I mean, at the moment, during these first couple arcs, I really appreciate that they are showing just how weak our characters are compared to even just the average hunter, right? The average veteran hunter can kick the ass of any of our characters except for probably Killua, right? But Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, they're not on that level yet, and I really like that fact. It's very refreshing to see a show which isn't afraid to just make it known exactly how weak our characters are compared to everything else, right? We also learned a bit more about how Nen works this episode. We did get confirmation on Hatsu. I believe I did speculate somewhat last episode about how Hatsu works. I can't remember if there was an official explanation given last episode or not. But now, 100% for certain, we know what all of them are, right? It's Ten, Zetsu, Ren, and Hatsu, right? So Ten means to focus your aura and to produce an aura. Zetsu means to nullify the aura and, all that good stuff. Ren is to increase your aura and empower it, like powering up. And then Hatsu is to project your aura outwards, right? Pretty straightforward. And the thing I like about that is they are all very, very vague descriptions. And that's good. It's good that they are vague descriptions because they are very vague and broad, which is useful. But, okay, vague is the wrong term. They're not vague. We know exactly what they are. Ren is to increase your power, right? We know what that is. If that's not vague, we know exactly what it is. So vague was the wrong one. What I mean is they are broad. They are very broad statements. Hatsu, for example, to project your power, like, outwards, right? That is not a vague statement, but it is a very broad statement. There are lots of ways in which that could be used. You could just project it outwards for intimidation. You could project it into an object. The statements are... they are solid. They are specific in regards to, like, what it is that it's doing, right? Like, we know what it is. It's not a wishy-washy Dragon Ball, oh yeah, the energy exists which you can do stuff with. Like, Ki in Dragon Ball, for example, just seems to be able to do whatever the fuck the author wants it to do, right? You want to fire it off as a blast, you can do that. You want to create a flash of light, you can do that. You want to create a disc that can apparently cut through anything, you can do that, right? It's like Ki in Dragon Ball just does whatever the fuck the mangaka wants it to do, pretty much. Nen doesn't seem like that. Nen seems like they have set boundaries of, okay, this is the area in which this specific section of Nen works. Zetsu, for example, it nullifies your aura, right? We know exactly what it does. Now, within that confine, we can get very creative with it, right? In Dragon Ball, for example, there is a very similar concept, right? The idea of just lowering your ki, and becoming stealthy. That's a thing in Dragon Ball where you reduce your aura and you become stealthy and people can't detect you, right? But that's kind of all it is, right? There's nothing interesting about it. It's just you lower your ki and that's it. That's all it is. In here, it seems far more interesting because it's the same concept, but they leave room for exploration of the concept, right? It's not just you lower your aura and that's it. No. You lower your aura and that can be used for recovery. It can be used for stealth. In this case, it can be used to focus and not have to worry about Nen so much. You can focus on other things. There are lots of different uses for this, which can exist because of the way the author has written it, where they have set clear boundaries for what it is capable of, but have left those boundaries broad enough that you can still experiment within them, as opposed to something like Dragon Ball where it's either one or the other. Either something works exactly this way and it can only work this way, or I can work however the fuck I want it to work, right? Those are the only two options in Dragon Ball, right? Either it's the Spirit Bomb, which works exactly in these specific ways. There's no room for experimentation. It works exactly like this. You gather energy from around you and put it into a ball. That is how it works, right? Or it's the fucking solar flare where it's like, I don't even understand how you use ki to create a flash of light. That makes no sense. How does this work? You know what I mean? It's like, it's either it has a very specific, this is exactly how it works, or a very vague, it just works and believe me, please, you know? So I'm liking how this is being done so far, where it's actually trying to, I also like it because it gives the audience room to speculate, you know? It gives the audience room to think about it, you know? Like I was thinking, for example, well, if you reduce your aura, maybe the spinning tops won't be able to target you, right? Targeting was the wrong word because it was specifically mentioned that the spinning tops weren't targeting him, but you get what I mean, right? Like, if their goal is to attack anything in his way and he has no aura, then maybe they won't consider him as something in the way because they won't be able to detect his presence or something like that. I was wrong about that, but it does kind of lean into what I was talking about, right? Where it gives the audience room to speculate. In Dragon Ball, you don't really have that. I know I keep talking about Dragon Ball specifically. It happens in lots of shows, not just Dragon Ball. It's just Dragon Ball. Everyone's seen Dragon Ball, right? So it's a nice, easy subject to talk about. Everyone's seen Dragon Ball. It's a show that's really old, so I'm not going to be fucking spoiling anything. You know, if I use like, for a second, when I was talking about how I like the fact that Gon loses a lot, I was going to talk about Berserk as a comparison, but I remembered, wait, no, I shouldn't do that because I don't want to spoil Berserk for people. So Dragon Ball is a nice, easy comparison because everyone's seen it. It's very old, so no one's going to be worried about spoilers, right? That's why I'm talking about Dragon Ball. So I'm not specifically ragging on Dragon Ball because I don't like it or anything. I really like Dragon Ball. It's just it's a very easy target because everyone's seen it and it's so old that it doesn't really count for spoilers anymore, right? But yeah, point is, in Dragon Ball you can't really predict shit, right? You can't really go, oh, well, if Goku uses his ki in this specific way, he can do this, because like, you don't fucking know how you can use ki. Like in the Buu saga, for example, when Vegeta created like handcuffs out of his ki and trapped Goku against the wall, you don't fucking know you could use ki that way before then. There's no way you can predict that. Up until this point, you fire ki at someone and it explodes, right? There's been no indication up to that point that you can turn ki into a set of fucking handcuffs and lock someone against the wall, right? That's not something which has been established in the rules up to that point because there were really no rules. We don't know what the limits of ki are or how you can manipulate it or how to use it. So there's no way for the audience to predict, oh, well, if he just uses it in this way, you know? And of course, I'm sure there's fans who have been like watching Dragon Ball for 30 years who write fan fictions and you come up with really creative ways to use ki. I'm not saying you can't like come up with creative ways to use ki, but what I mean is like there are no boundaries to how you can use ki. It is just an endless. It is energy, and you can use energy in ways. So I like the fact that with Nen, they are setting clear boundaries. One, for the reasons I already explained earlier, but also because it allows the audience to speculate on. You can use, what if you use Ten in this way? And what if you use Zetsu in this way? Like, you have clear boundaries on how it works, and that allows the audience to really speculate within those boundaries to think how it could be used strategically, which I really appreciate and I like. Like in this case, Guido, my boy. This dude was putting he was using Hatsu to project his Nen into the tops and control them, right? And it was explained that we got some rules, right? Smaller objects require less Nen, large objects require more Nen. But he couldn't just make any object hit as hard as the spinning tops did, right? He can't just do that with any old fucking rock he finds on the beach, right? The reason he's able to do that is because he has a special relation with those tops, right? He has a special connection with them, and because of that, he's able to make them as effective as he does. And that's also interesting because it sets limits to Nen, right? If he could just do that with any object, and that raises the questions of, well, he could just do that with anything. You know, he walks onto a beach, he just projects Nen into the sand, and all of a sudden the sand can hit as hard as a fucking dagger into the chest, right? But by setting that limit of no, the reason they're this effective is because he has a special relation to him, it sets that limit of, right, why doesn't he just project his Nen into this random object and kill the guy? He's right there. He can do it. Well, the reason he can't do that is because he doesn't have a special relation to that random object. So it won't be effective, right? So that's another clever way in which they've set limits to explain down the line. You know, if Gon is sat opposite some guy and there's a pencil on the desk, he can't just, well, maybe a pencil because a pencil's sharp. And if there's a spinning top on the desk, he can't just lift up the spinning top and fire it into the guy's face and kill him because he doesn't have a special relation with that spinning top. And so him using the Nen with it would work, but it wouldn't be as effective as what Guido is doing here, for example. Now, I could be completely wrong about that, you know? Maybe in 20 episodes' time there's a character who can just fucking manipulate everything around him. That's totally possible, but again, I'm just speculating based off of the information I currently have available to me. And then during the fight, Gon was having an issue, and his issue was that the Nen, his little field of Nen, right, which he was using 10 to create that defensive shield, was what was preventing him from getting really fucked up by the spinning tops, right? It was acting as a bit of a barrier between him and them, like armor, right? But he was just getting hit and racking up those points, right? Point 1, point 2, point 3, and that's exactly the problem I was talking about last episode, right? The guy, he clearly does have a lot of power because he hit Gon with the spinning top and just like shattered his bones, right? So he clearly does have power, but he's like a point fighter, right? I'm going to use MMA as an example again because I'm a big fan of MMA. I don't know if you've noticed. In MMA, you have the concept of point fighters, right? These are people who aren't so interested in knocking you out or submitting you or anything like that. They're more interested in just playing the game, you know, knowing the rules, knowing how they can score points with the judges, and just fighting well, you know. They hit you with the jabs, they get you around with the hook, get around your defenses, they take you down at the end of the round to steal the round a little bit, you know. They are interested in racking up their points, impressing the judges, and getting a judge decision win, and not being too risky with, you know, going for knockouts and submissions and stuff like that, right? And that's what this guy seems like. He seems like a point fighter, right? He will knock you out and break your bones if given the opportunity, but his main goal is just to send those spinning tops out and rack up a bunch of points, which is a really good method because you hit him once with the top, you get a point. You hit him once with the top really hard, you get 2 points. If they happen to fall down, that's another point, right? You can rack up points very quickly using this method, right? It's actually a pretty smart way of doing things. You know, pretty smart. And it's clearly a very effective method of fighting, right? And I like it because it's not the kind of method of fighting that would really win. I mean, it would still win, but it wouldn't be as dangerous if the rules were different, right? For example, if it was more like what you'd see in the traditional anime tournament arc, where it's like, oh, you lose if you get knocked out or submit, you know, that kind of thing. This fighting style would still be dangerous, but it would be far less dangerous because you have this mindset of, well, if he can just tank the hits and figure out a way to wear down his opponent, he can win, you know, that kind of thing. But in this, it doesn't matter if you can tank the hits because you're getting hit, right? If you are tanking the hits, that means by definition you are getting hit. And if you get hit 10 times at most, you're fucked, right? So it is the rules of this specific fight which allow Guido to be far more dangerous than he would be in a more traditional rule set for this kind of fight, right? Which I like that a lot. And then Gon, he was trying to focus, use his senses to feel the tops around him, but in doing that he lost focus on his Nen, which removed his barrier, and so it was a difficult situation, right? Because he couldn't focus on using his senses and using Nen at the same time. which makes sense, right? You can't focus entirely on two separate things at once, right? You have to focus on one thing. And so he eventually resorted to using Zetsu, right? And I mentioned earlier, I originally thought he was using Zetsu for stealth, like maybe to make it so that the tops couldn't detect him. But in reality, it was so that he could dodge by focusing not on his nen so much, but more on the things around him and allowing him to dodge. And he was able to do that effectively for a long time, right? He was able to dodge up to 50 tops at once. He was doing really well. But eventually he slipped up, he made a mistake, and he got hit, right? It was bound to happen. Because he didn't have a chance of beating the guy, really. You know, he didn't have a chance of beating the guy, you know? Guido was too good, right? The tops were racking up points, and even if Gon was able to get past the points, Guido can just spin around, and Gon can't do anything to him, right? This Guido is just too high level for Gon at this point, right? He cannot beat Guido right now. That's just not going to happen, right? But it's the same thing we've seen before with Gon. We've seen it lots of times, actually, where he will go the extra mile to, you know, improve himself. We saw it all the way back in episode 2, where Kurapika had successfully answered the quiz question of, you know, your son and your daughter, or whatever the question was, have been kidnapped, you know, all that good stuff. And Gon was like, yeah, I know I've answered, I know we've got the question right already, but I want to keep thinking about it because I need to think about this, because what if it actually happens? And then again in episode 7 we saw it when they were trying to capture the ball from Netero, and Killer was like, you know what, we're never going to catch this ball. We could go for the next year and we wouldn't catch it. Whatever, I give up, right? And then Gon was like, you know what, you're right, but I'm still going to keep trying anyway, you know? And he just set a goal for himself to make Netero use his right arm. And yeah, we've seen this a lot from Gon, where even if he knows he can't achieve the grand goal, or even if he does achieve the goal, you know, he will continue working anyway, just to get that experience, to get that practice. And it's what I've talked about before, where all the other characters, their mind is set on the goal, whereas Gon's mind is set beyond the goal, which is interestingly kind of comes back to what I was talking about in episode 20-ish. I think it was episode 20, where Gon had that dream about his dad. And I mentioned the fact that the stairs were representing his journey, right? Having to go up the stairs, face the trials, face the dangers. And at the top of the stairs was his dad, but there was nothing beyond that, which I found worrying, because I was worried that once Gon found his dad, if that does happen, he might become purposeless, because he practically built his entire reason to be a hunter was because of his dad, and his entire dream in life pretty much seems to be related to his dad. And in the dream he had, his dad was the final step he needed to reach, and there was nothing beyond that, which has me worried that, you know, like, once he reaches that point, he's going to become purposeless and not have anything left to do in life, right? Which is a juxtaposition to what I've just been saying about how he's not looking at the goal, he's looking beyond the goal. But it could be more that he's just looking at the goal far beyond this, right? The whole thing where it's like, I can't remember what the phrase is, like, aim for the moon and you'll reach the stars, or whatever the phrase is. Or maybe it's the opposite, where it's like, aim for the stars and you'll reach the moon, you know? But Gon is kind of like the opposite of that, where he's not focused so much on these small goals of, I need to grab the ball from Netero, or I need to answer this two question quiz, or I need to beat this guy in a fight right now. He's not so focused on these small goals that will reach him there. Well, there we go. If each of those goals is representative of a step on that dream, the step on that staircase, he's not looking down, focusing on each individual step. He's got his eyes up, pointing towards his dad, looking at the final goal, and that's the thing, right? Gon is focused more on what he wants to achieve in the long run, rather than the short-term challenges, right? So even if he knows he can't win the fight against Guido, he wants to continue fighting anyway, because he wants to get the experience, he wants to get the practice. He doesn't care if he beats Guido. This is just one step. What matters is that he keeps pushing on, and he keeps getting stronger and more experienced, so that he can eventually reach that final goal, right? It's the same with Hanzo. He doesn't care that Hanzo beat him up and broke his arm for 3 hours. He has to get past. It's easy for him. He just goes past it and continues on with his journey. Anyway, I could talk about this for ages, but if I do, I'm going to fucking wear out my voice before I even get to the next few episodes. Let's move on to the next subject. Wing. We got a lot from Wing this episode as well. we saw that he was beginning to regret somewhat that he had begun training Gon and Killua. You know, he saw what happened to Gon. He saw the danger Gon was putting himself in, and it's like he felt bad almost for giving Gon and Killua the opportunity to hurt themselves like that, I guess. Or it could also be because he was worried about Gon's potential, I guess. Like a kind of thing where on the one hand he's excited, but he's also a little bit worried, and that kind of mix of things. And Killua, not Killua, sorry, and Kurapika as well. We saw a bit of Kurapika. Kurapika, he went to I think it was a hunter agency or something, and he was like, hey, I want a job. But I think the lady wouldn't let him do it because she knew that he couldn't see Nen. He hadn't activated his Nen yet, which it seems is related to the final phase of the hunter exam, right? What Mustache Man was talking about a few episodes ago, where they haven't really finished the exam yet. It seems as though learning about Nen is the next step in the hunter exam that they haven't been taught about yet, which makes sense because if you can't use Nen, you're not going to have much luck against the really high level people, are you? It makes sense, right? If you don't have Nen, you're not going to beat someone who does have Nen, even if they're a fucking cripple with no legs, like we saw with Guido, right? Guido is a damn cripple, but he can kick ass because he knows how to use Nen, right? So you could be the weakest guy on the planet and kick the ass of 99% of the population if you just know how to use Nen. So as a hunter, if you don't know how to use it, you're not going to have much luck, right? So it makes sense. And now Kurapika came into contact with that guy. The guy is going to teach him, and that's great. So we know how Kurapika is going to learn. We know how he's going to evolve. I'm wondering about Leorio though now, right? Leorio is the odd one out of the moment. Killua and Gon are training in Heaven's Arena. Kurapika's met this fucking gunslinging dude who it seems as though he was using his Nen around the bullets, which would make sense. That would be pretty cool. Someone who has a gun and uses their Nen to manipulate the bullets and stuff. That would be really cool to see. And Leorio, though, he's like going to med school or something. So if he doesn't in some way come into contact with the concept of Nen during that time, he's going to be really left behind by the point the whole gang meets up again in 6 months' time. So hopefully he can come into contact with it in some way. I don't know how, but hopefully he can. But yeah, this is in regard to Gon losing. This is what I was talking about at the beginning of this episode and the end of last episode, where because they have it set up this way, where you can have 4 losses before you get kicked out, it's basically telling us that Gon is going to lose, right? Because if they said, but if you lose a match, like you have to win 10 matches in a row to face the master, but if you lose, then you're out. You know, that's telling us that Gon probably won't lose, right? But it specifically says, no, you have to lose 4 matches. Why make it 4 matches, right? If you want to have tension of, oh no, I hope Gon doesn't lose, you could easily do that by just saying, if you lose a match, you're out. And because the stakes here are so high, you'd probably be willing to believe that. Okay, if you lose a match, you're out. Fair enough, I can understand that. Only the winners get to move on, the losers have to move back down. It makes sense, right? But no, they specifically said to 4 losses. And that basically spells it out to the audience, right? They're giving us 4 losses before we have to move down. The only reason you would do that as a writer is if you expect your characters to lose. Because if the characters never lose, there's no reason to set that arbitrary 4 losses, right? It's the same thing as the tournament before, at the phase 5 of the Hunters exam, where they said that, you know, if you win, you're safe, but if you lose, you move further along, and only one person will lose. As soon as they said that, it became obvious that one of our main characters was going to lose the whole thing. Because if it wasn't one of our main characters losing the whole thing, it wouldn't make any sense to single out an individual person to lose, right? Why would you put focus on one person who has lost if it's not going to be someone important, right? So as soon as they did that, as soon as they said that only one person can lose, it became obvious that the loser was going to be someone we cared about. And so I feel it's very much the same logic here, right? The fact that they bothered to make it 4 losses rather than just 1 loss basically spells it out to the audience that our characters aren't going to win them all, right? Because if our characters were going to win everything, the author, the mangaka, could very easily just make it so the 1 loss moves you down, and that would make sense given how high the stakes are here. So making it specifically 4 losses before you move down, it's basically just the author telling us, hey, we're not going to win all of these fights, but that's okay, you know? But yeah, I don't want to talk too much longer. I could probably talk longer if I want to. I'd probably just end up reiterating points I've already talked about, and I don't want to fucking destroy my voice before I have a chance to watch the next episode. So yeah, I've enjoyed talking about this. I've been able to talk about a lot this episode, which is very nice. So yeah, leave a like if you liked the video, dislike if you didn't, it's all good. Share the video around if you want to help my channel grow. Share it on Reddit or Twitter or wherever the hell you are. I don't mind as long as word gets out, I'm happy. And subscribe if you want to subscribe, that's cool too. And I will see you in the next episode.